better served if protected by the United States from modern threats in the Arctic region. Paul Adams looks now at why Greenland is so strategically important.
It's a vast island of ice, home to just 57,000 people. So why does Greenland matter? Sitting between North America and Russia, Greenland's strategic significance has long been recognized. During the Cold War, the US had bases here. There were 10,000 military personnel at Batuvik. Now there are only around 150 people left. But Donald Trump says today's threats mean America needs to control Greenland. One reason is this. It's at the northern end of a key naval choke point known as the Greenland-Iceland-UK Gap. Russian submarines heading into the North Atlantic have to come this way. For a president intent on dominating the Western Hemisphere, Greenland represents a kind of gateway. And that's key. He's determined to keep rivals out of his backyard. Just look at his latest national security strategy. The United States must be preeminent in the Western Hemisphere as a condition of our security and prosperity. That doctrine was on full display just over 2 weeks ago when American forces attacked the Venezuelan capital and arrested the country's president. But if it's vital for the US to keep enemies away from Greenland, why can't NATO handle it? After all, it is the North Atlantic Alliance. Donald Trump says Denmark isn't doing enough. And the White House wasn't impressed last week by the arrival of a handful of troops from some of NATO's European members.
Countries have to have ownership, and you defend ownership, you don't defend leases. And we'll have to defend Greenland.
The office of president. From his second inauguration speech onwards, Donald Trump has spoken about expanding America's influence and its territory. Now he says the world will not be secure unless America has complete and total control of Greenland. Paul Adams, BBC News.
Well, part of Donald Trump's rationale for wanting Greenland is the perceived threat from Russia and China. So how is Moscow viewing the present crisis? Let's speak to Steve Rosenberg. And Steve, is Moscow worried by President Trump's rhetoric?
What I find interesting, Rita, is this, that Donald Trump says that he needs to take over Greenland so that Russia and China do not take over Greenland. He claims that Russian submarines, Russian destroyers are all over the place there. If that were the case, then you might expect the Russians to be pretty miffed that Donald Trump had barged in to try to take over the place. But they're not at all. Today, writing about Greenland, the Russian government newspaper was full of praise for Donald Trump. It said that if he manages to pull this off, if he takes over Greenland, then, quote, he will go down in history as a figure who asserted the greatness of the United States. And the paper claimed that the annexation of Greenland will be on a par to the abolition of slavery by Abraham Lincoln. This is the Russian government paper talking. And from my reading, it was actively encouraging Donald Trump to go ahead with this, saying that any U-turn by the president would be politically damaging and sort of recommending a swift annexation. And the reason Russia is so excited by this is that Russia sees a benefit to Russia from Donald Trump taking Greenland. The Russians can see the stresses, the strains on the Western alliance. Moscow is loving it.
Steve Rosenberg in Moscow, thank you very much. Well, let's get a final word from our European Katia Adler's in Brussels for us tonight. And Katia, in contrast to Moscow, there is obvious alarm in many European capitals. What are the options open to them?
Well, what seems clear now, Rita, is that softly approach that European leaders had favoured with Donald Trump till now, that's out the window, and what they're moving more towards is a kind of good cop, bad cop strategy, with Europe saying to Donald Trump, we understand you're worried about Arctic security, so are we. No need to go it alone, unilaterally, over Greenland. On the other hand, the EU, which is a global trading power, is preparing possible economic measures that could do real pain to American businesses. The hope there is to persuade Donald Trump to come to a compromise over Greenland. But really, in order for Europe to cut through with Donald Trump, they are going to have to stick together, not just the EU, but NATO as well, and the UK will be key there. The thing is, Europe's leaders are torn between wanting to do what they see as the right thing internationally and domestic concerns. Because if this more confrontational approach does lead to a transatlantic trade war, that could affect everybody's voters. And that's something, of course, that leaders want to avoid. So, singing from the same hymn sheet, for an extended period of time over Greenland, that is going to be tough for Europe.
Europe editor Katya Adler there. And Victoria Derbyshire will have more on Greenland on Newsnight on BBC Two shortly. Victoria.
Hi, Reeta. Yes, tonight, will President Trump take Greenland by force? When asked that question today, he replied, no comment. So what is his next move? And how should the UK government and European governments respond? Newsnight on BBC Two, iPlayer and around the world on BBC News. We'll see you at 10:30.
Victoria, thank you. Prince Harry's legal case against the publisher of the Daily Mail has begun at the High Court in London. He's joined by 6 high-profile figures, including Sir Elton John and Baroness Doreen Lawrence, who are suing Associated Newspapers Limited in a civil case alleging unlawful activity was used to delve into their private lives. The company strongly denies the claims. Tom Simons was in court.
This was possibly the last highly anticipated high-stakes confrontation between the Prince and the papers.
Morning, Harry.
The Duke of Sussex back to take on one of the biggest names in the news business. He said that every move, thought or feeling he had was tracked by reporters so the publisher of the Daily Mail could make money. He'll give evidence later this week. Also at court today, the actor Elizabeth Hurley with her son. She alleges private investigators were used to source stories about her. The other claimants are Sir Elton John and his husband David Furnish, Baroness Doreen Lawrence, the actor Sadie Frost-Law, and the Liberal Democrat former minister Sir Simon Hughes. Opening the case, Barrister David Sherborne told the court Associated Newspapers had maintained a hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil defence, but he said they knew they had skeletons in their closet. During the trial, he said he'd prove there had been clear, systematic and sustained use of unlawful information gathering at both the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday during a 20-year period. Prince Harry says that more than a dozen articles were written about his personal life that were so personal they must have come from paid private investigators. Stories about his relationships with girlfriends, for example. There is some evidence of payments, but the newspapers say this was old-fashioned journalism, sourced from friends, from press officers, and from other journalists. The former Daily Mail editor Paul Dacres always denied there was phone hacking, and he stopped the use of private investigators. The publisher says these claims are preposterous, but Prince Harry is not backing down.
He will feel justified if he wins on some of the counts, but I do think that he probably will draw a line under it, whatever happens after this case, because he's trying to reconcile with his own family. They clearly would rather this wasn't happening.
It's the Prince's toughest case yet. Associated seems willing to fight for its reputation every step of the way. Tom Simons, BBC News at the High Court.
I'm joined by Katie Razzle, our media and culture editor. What's your take on the significance of this case, Katie?
Well, Reeta, to my mind, the allegations being raised by these 7 high-profile names are the most damning to be levelled against the UK newspaper group. So anything other than complete victory for the publishers of the Mail on Sunday will be problematic for them. Associated is mounting a very staunch defence. We got a sense, even just in one day, of the trauma these celebrities feel they suffered at the hands of the newspaper titles. But think how hard it will be, for example, for the Prince to hear Associated claims that rather than being gathered unlawfully, often its stories about him came from his friends. And the paper is even naming people it says betrayed him. Prepare for 9 weeks of quite bruising testimony. But if we zoom out for a bit, the Prince Harry, who successfully took on the publishers of the Mirror and the Sun, was very much in combative mood. He was furious with the papers, but he also apparently didn't mind severing ties with his family, with his warts and all memoir, his tell-all interviews. He's now very much in reconciliation mode. He may want to hold Associated Newspapers to account, but this is an organisation that his family have to deal with every day. The Queen's son even has a regular column in the Mail, so the timing of all this is perhaps a little bit awkward. Only, I would say, after the case ends can he have any hope of reconciliation. As long as there are no major detonations, reconciliation with his father anyway. In terms of his brother, it's a different matter.
Katie, thank you very much. Katie Russell there. There'll be 3 days of mourning in Spain after 40 people were killed when 2 high-speed trains collided yesterday in the south of the country. Dozens more people were injured. It happened near the town of Adamuz when a train heading towards Madrid derailed about an hour after leaving the southern city of Malaga. Spain's Prime Minister said there would be absolute transparency in finding the cause of the accident. James Waterhouse reports.
For one carriage, the haunting moments after impact. Survivors described being thrown through the air into darkness. With exceptional calm, staff urged people to stay on the train because it wasn't clear what state the track was in. It soon became clear that not everyone escaped. Somehow, on an early evening in southern Spain, 2 high-speed trains collided. One, travelling north to Madrid, came off its tracks, so officials, into an oncoming train going in the opposite direction, causing that one to crash into an embankment. More than 400 people were on board in total. Amidst the grief, local media are calling this man a hero after rescuing casualties with his quad bike.
There were people with missing limbs, people crying. It was like an inferno. Nobody was born to see this. For many people, I couldn't do anything.
Anna's carriage was flipped onto its side and had to be pulled to safety. She describes the anguish of seeing people she knew were going to die.
Some people were okay, but some were in a really bad way. I had them in front of me, and you could tell they were really bad, and I couldn't do anything.
There are now queues to give DNA samples in the hope relatives can be identified. The number of dead, though, is expected to rise. Officials have been quick to rule out human error, but there are feelings of shock and confusion over how something so catastrophic could have happened on such a straight bit of track. And the company behind the first train to derail say it was only made in 2022 and inspected 4 days ago. Spain hasn't seen a major crash like this for more than a decade. It's left families devastated and the authorities stumped. James Waterhouse, BBC News, Adamuz.
The former head of West Midlands Police, Craig Guilford, has been referred to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. He retired on Friday, having faced numerous calls to resign after AI was used in a report which justified the banning of Israeli football fans from a match last year. I'm joined now by our UK correspondent Daniel Sanford. Why has he been referred, Daniel?
Well, in simple terms, he's been referred because of what's been described as an unacceptable loss of confidence in the force after these fans from the Israeli club Maccabi Tel Aviv were banned from going to a match against Aston Villa. And does show that by retiring with immediate effect on Friday, he hasn't actually managed to escape further scrutiny of his actions. And this referral is going to go into a wider investigation by the police conduct watchdog, the IOPC, into how that match came to be banned. It's going to look at the police briefings and intelligence, some of which was inaccurate. It's going to look at how AI ended up being used in generating a completely fictitious match between West Ham and Maccabi Tel Aviv, and also how it was that the chief constable ended up misleading MPs about that. But of course, underlying all of this is this critical question: what was it about the fans from the Israeli club Maccabi Tel Aviv that was so bad that they had to be banned rather than just being policed in the normal way? And how much influence did noisy local anti-Israel campaigners and politicians have on that decision?
Daniel, thank you. Daniel Sanford there. There have been 3 shark attacks in Sydney in a little over 24 hours, leaving at least 2 people seriously injured. 2 boys, aged 11 and 12, were attacked in separate incidents, while a man is in a critical condition after being injured while surfing. Australia is home to some of the world's best beaches, but is also one of the deadliest places for shark attacks. Australia correspondent Katie Watson reports from Manly Beach, where one of the attacks happened.
3 attacks in little over 24 hours. Australians live with the reality that sharks swim in their waters, but this news has surprised people here in Sydney. The first attack happened inside the harbour on Sunday afternoon, near Shark Beach, of all places, in the east of the city. Police say a 12-year-old boy was jumping off rocks into the water with his friends when he was attacked.
He is in for the fight of his life now, and the actions of emergency services yesterday gave him that chance. It was a horrendous scene at the time when police attended.
Then, Monday morning, another young boy was attacked while surfing at Dee Why in Sydney's north. This time, the young boy was lucky, just this huge bite in his surfboard. And on Monday evening, another attack not far away in Manly. The surfer, believed to be in his 20s, he was pulled from the water by members of the public and is now being treated for serious leg injuries. These past few days have seen heavy rainfall in Sydney. This is a ferry to Manly over the weekend. This recent bad weather made the water murky. Perfect conditions for an ambushed predator.
There's no swimming or surfing at the beach here in Manly today. In fact, all of the beaches in the city's north have been closed for the next 48 hours because of the attacks. Now, Australians aren't naive. Everyone who goes in the water knows a shark attack could happen, but they're still incredibly rare given the large amount of people who use the beaches every day. There's still, though, a sense of unease after this unprecedented series of attacks.
Katie Watson, BBC News in Sydney.
Sir David and Victoria Beckham's oldest son, Brooklyn, has hit out at his parents on social media, saying that they value brand Beckham more than him or their family, with which he says he doesn't wish to be reconciled. David Silito is here with his quite an extraordinary statement, David.
Sir David and Lady Victoria. Now, if we go back 25 years, they were better known as Posh and Becks. Do you remember that wedding, the Golden Thrones? The ring bearer was a 3-month-old Brooklyn Beckham. He has grown up in the public eye, probably in terms of fame in Britain only second maybe to the royal family. But behind that perfect image, it appears the story isn't true. All is not well. He has done an Instagram post and he's pulled no punches. He said at the top of the list that his parents have attempted to ruin his relationship with his wife, Nicola Peltz. He says their wedding was derailed. His mother, he said, hijacked their first dance. A promised wedding dress, he said, was cancelled at the last minute. But he also makes many wider accusations about growing up in the family. He says, my family values public promotion and endorsements above all else. Brand Beckham comes first. Now, of course, this is just one side of the story. We've approached the Beckhams, but nothing so far. But this doesn't sound like he just wants to clear the air. He says he's suffered endless attacks in the press over the years, which he blames on his parents. And he says, after growing up with overwhelming anxiety, stepping away, he says, has brought peace and relief.
David, thank you very much. David Silito there. Football's governing body FIFA has condemned what it calls ugly scenes during Senegal's 1-0 victory in the Africa Cup of Nations final over Morocco. There were violent clashes following tensions over a disallowed goal and a controversial penalty. Phone footage also showed a substitute being attacked by ball boys for trying to stop Senegal's goalkeeper getting a towel to keep his gloves dry. Morocco have now threatened legal action after Senegal left the field in protest at the penalty decision. The Italian fashion designer Valentino Garavani has died at the age of 93. He was known for a style synonymous with luxury, wealth, opulence and shoulder pads. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni paid tribute to the designer, describing him as the undisputed master of style and elegance. Charlotte Gallagher looks back at his life.
I know what men want.
What do they want?
They want to be beautiful.
Valentino Garavani, the aristocrat of taste, once dubbed the Sheikh of chic. His designs were elegant, romantic celebrations of a traditional idea of femininity. Frills, raised waists, and layers of delicate lace. His famous V logo was the mark of something exclusive, promising membership of a refined cultural elite. Simply known as Valentino, his lifestyle was as regal as his fashion. Grand houses, a luxury yacht, legendary parties.
I've seen you in the papers.
Seen him in the papers. He travelled the world by private jet, never parted from his beloved pugs. But his background was modest. Born in a village outside Milan, studying textiles in Paris, before opening a grand design house in Rome in the 1960s. Influential friends wore his designs, elevating his profile. Elizabeth Taylor, Sophia Loren, and Jackie Kennedy. His signature was this vibrant colour. It appeared in all his collections and is universally described as Valentino Red. He did perfume, accessories, selling his company for $300 million in the late 90s, staying on as chief designer for another decade.
How are you? Glad to see you. Thank you for coming.
He played himself in the film The Devil Wears Prada. For more than half a century, he was the most flamboyant figure in a flamboyant industry. Valentino, Emperor of Fashion.
Valentino Garavani, who's died at the age of 93.